have to have it your way. You don't always have to be the first. You can actually have joy in helping raise somebody else up. It's so beautiful. I love that aspect of the 6 areas of the curriculum. And then, of course, wholeness brings it all together. And so you can take a little piece of this and a little piece of that and bring it all together. But remembering that it's just really important that you really, really touch their lives, make it real to them. So the reason I wanted to lay all this out is when you go about your lesson, building your lessons, and you want to just hold that subject in your mind and sort of see what's trying to come. All of these are things that you can consider. It's not that every lesson has to have every one of these. You'll go crazy. But all of these will help feed you and give you that, oh, I could do this. Or, oh, Joey, I want to address Joey. Joey. George. I want to address George. And I feel this opening in him. He's always up for exploring. Is there a way I can bring exploring into it? Or is there a way that we can build something? Can we, or cook? We're doing geology and we're gonna, the crust is this, and then we're gonna put in peaches, and then we're gonna put in, whatever it is. So all these things can really help us get what we want when we're having to create our own lessons, which we're going to have to do most of the time, which is add depth and meaningfulness to what we do. Okay, so I haven't given you any chance for questions. Does anybody have questions? We're going to practice a little bit later today, because I know, like Usha said, you all have lessons that you're going to be trying to teach, and there's actually a lesson planning form that we'll go through a little bit. But, yes?
Well, I'm wondering, I know these are specific to the energy of the class and the individual children that you have each year, but are you guys documenting these ideas and the things that you've done that work so that you can share it with other teachers?
When the village, we've gone through our accreditation process, and the one biggest thing was document. They'd say, okay, what about this? And we'd have all, we did. We always had plenty of stuff according to their questions. They say, where is it documented? It's in my head. We have pictures, and pictures actually can work some. But it's having that, honestly, for us, you're absolutely right. It needs to be documented. Nobody has time to write it down right now. Between teaching and teaching kids, teaching parents, teaching teachers, and all the hats. If we had somebody we could hire that we just talk it into a tape recorder and they, write it down for us or something, it would be really nice. It should be done. Now, the only thing is, and this is what I'd be a little bit nervous about, is
you have to draw on your own.
You have to draw on your own. You know how easy it is. And that's the thing. When you go getting information from things that are already ready-made, be careful. Be careful, because it's easy. It's so easy to just look at it and take it. But it doesn't match your kids. And once it's written down, it's so often on its way to being dead. So you're right, just examples. But just be careful. If you're drawing from other things, make sure that you don't draw upon it too much. Actually, I told this to Usha. She said, I don't know if you should say this. This was a couple years ago. Often what I do, if I find a program that I think is good, I'll tear out the table of contents and throw the rest away. The table of contents can guide, especially if it's a subject matter you don't know a lot about, the table of contents can guide you, because it says, okay, by the chapter headings, teach this, teach this, teach this. So it guides you what to teach, but then you have to create it according to your kids and stuff. And you don't have the crutch of the rest of the stuff. Throw it away, burn it. So you can't go back. I mean, if you
have to intercede.
Go ahead.
If I stand close to you, the mic picks it up.
Oh,
We wouldn't have any teachers if I told them what you just told them.
Oh.
I wouldn't have a teacher. I might have one or two, and they would be, you have this inexhaustible source of energy that not everybody has. So,
keep a few of the chapters. Keep the first 2 pages of the chapter.
I'm just a little bit more, what's the right word?
It doesn't come. If you look at the chapter heading, it does. You don't think it would come?
It would. You have to have some sort of balance. And how do I put this?
Pragmatic.
That's the word I needed.
Yeah.
Being a little more pragmatic of what is. I just feel that there's so much you can get from other sources, and you feel inside, how does this fit with my class? How does this fit with Joey? How do I create something that we can build? How can I? But if there's a great lesson already created right here that addresses the intellect, and I can tell a story right here that will address the feeling, why should I start from scratch every single day?
And you were not trapped by it?
Mary, do you have something to contribute or ask?
Well, to contribute, actually, I am a first-year teacher. I graduated with my certificate last year. And a lot of what we did was take already made lessons and not be trapped by it, but find ways that you can manipulate it to work with your students. Or like I have a math curriculum book.
Mm-hmm.
That is a wonderful book of learning math with movement and games, and it's so much fun. And there are some really amazing curriculums out there. And I go through and I look at the lesson, and some of the lessons, like, it just would not work with the class. And generally there's another lesson right after it that's the same subject, or I can change it a little bit, but I as a first-year teacher would not be teaching if I had to create everything on my own.
And think of your first year teaching. Did you really create everything you taught?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at Ananda, not before. When I was
Okay.
teaching in public school, I just drew upon the curriculum. I mean, we had adopted curriculum, and you didn't even have a choice.
But there's
You just did it.
There's a lot, and I mean, a lot of my teacher training had to do with all of these. The-
Since we
the-
started,
the
there is so
six
much better
areas,
curricula
the
out there
tools
than
of
there was.
maturity, the passions of childhood. So there's a lot of newer curriculums out that really touch on these things.
And I think Sandy and Karen actually shared some of the sources at the last class that they've drawn upon that do that. So, but you would share your process with the class, and Ollie, what you feel about what she's saying.
So about the book, as you said, tear off the pages. I would say get 10 books, read through that, see what appeals or what fits with your classroom, and just apply that. But I don't think there is a single curriculum or any paper which I would just go by.
Take as it is.
As it
Yeah.
is.
And that would be my only fear, actually, is that it's like a trap, because it's so easy, and they know how to make things look good. But
But what
if you're in tune enough, you're going to be able to see through. Yeah.
But what you're saying is just right, in that we caution the ones we're teaching to be aware of that.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit like you calling Bharat and asking him for
Yes.
some ideas of how to do the geese. Getting the teacher primed with some seeds of how to achieve this, experience it in their classroom, and then adapt it. Just-
Well, and there are like that book that my parent gave me, Coyote's Guide to Connecting with Nature. I haven't thrown one thing out from that book. Everything. In fact, when I asked Bart, because he actually, some of the things that he has done are in that book, and I said, what is this really like? And he said, it's the closest thing to us education I've ever seen. He said it's really, really good. And in fact, at our nature conference, our worldwide nature conference in May, I'm going to have them lead some of the things. So there are things out there, like Usha shared, that with the conscious discipline, she said she feels like they've articulated what we do. And there are sources out there. But by and large, I know my own self, I'll only find a tidbit here and a tidbit there. And pretty much, I don't want the rest of the stuff. It's just not, it's not education for life enough. But that doesn't mean there are no sources out there.
This
Yeah.
has really gotten them going. Look at all the hands. Arsha.
Well, I just wanted to say that no matter how you develop your curriculum, whether you get it from the universe through intuition or inspired by other sources, I think the beauty of designing your own curriculum is that you as a teacher are more inspired. So that's what I think is the beauty of doing your own.
If you just know that, be aware, if you're not to fall into the trap of just take what's out there, and be willing to look at it and say, now wait a minute, does this really reflect what we're trying to do? What's the consciousness in this?
But just to say it, that was a different point than the question that I originally asked, which is as an education for life teacher, applying these
Yes.
particular aspects and then doing some documenting of that
Yes.
so that new teachers
Yeah.
can see how that applies.
Yeah.
Because they've learned in their training
Yeah.
how other things apply, like that anatomy thing that Karen
Bloom's taxonomy.
taxonomy
Yes.
or whatever, you know, they've learned how those apply, so we can
Right.
show them how these apply.
You're absolutely right.
I
I was 30 some years ago.
So the curricula that was available when we were starting out, I mean, it was all linear and intellectual. There's a whole lot more understanding now about what kids need to learn. Yes, Vidura?
Well,
Here.
I have a comment, and you don't always know that I'm not a teacher and just auditing this class, but it seems to me that we're very early in the development of this EFL
Yes.
movement. And I think it's extremely important that we cling to the core principles that Toby is enunciating, using these factors that separate us from the crowd and uniquely distinguish what we're trying to do. Because everything in the world, as this begins to spread out and we come down from the high point of the purity of our intention and that has been created, everything is going to try to drag us down to a base level of this.
What we're used to.
Everything is out there. So especially when this thing is so seminal, it is extremely important for us to stick to the highest that we're able to achieve. And I think what Toby is giving us this morning is incredibly inspiring to me as to the foundation of what this work is about. So, and I think it's really important to hear it. So.
Yes, and we're going to make her write it down. And I got to go to school with my 4-year-old nephew, who will be turning 5 this month, to visit 4-year-old kindergarten. And so I was assured that it was different with the other teacher. But long story short, this was actually the aide who's going to be a teacher next year. And there was a Spanish teacher in the room, and there was another aide in the room, and I'd say there were 15 4-year-olds. And it was unbelievably, like I said, I felt like I could, when I was with the children, I felt like it could be an Education for Life classroom completely. But when I saw this teacher, the Spanish teacher and this teacher, not the aide, interacting with the children, something was missing that's here in this school. And it's here, that has been in all the Education for Life schools that I've been in. And I thought, well, what is it? She's saying everything right. I couldn't find anything wrong with any of her interactions with the children. And finally I thought, I know what it is. It's as if there's a glass wall between her and the children. And she's saying everything right, and she's doing the right things, but I didn't feel it coming from her heart. And when I figured it out was when I saw the aide. And this little boy came in the classroom, and he was telling the teacher, the aide, the elderly aide, who was actually a retired teacher, who came back to help because the main teacher was out. And he was telling her something, and his face was this, infused with enthusiasm and everything. And she looked right at him, and she was just so focused, heart to heart with him, and responded to him with a question. And it wasn't coming from saying the right thing or the right philosophy. It was just, she was just heart to heart, speaking soul to soul. And I thought, that's what's different in our schools, is that every single teacher has this respect for each child's, maybe not their behavior, but this belief that they are a reflection of divine energy, or like a wave on the ocean of divine energy, and that deep inside, if we could uncover all the dross, there's just pure light, and that this, more than an attempt, and a willingness to be in the heart and try to speak to each child as a soul, as a child of God. And that was missing. And I just thought, it really doesn't matter how perfect the curriculum is. It really doesn't matter how perfect the philosophy is. It's all about your relationship with each child. That's the core of the classroom. And if that's right, you could use the worst curriculum in the world, and your energy will infuse it with love and with inspiration. So I want to start with that, just to say, don't get panicked about writing curriculum. Yes, this is extremely worthwhile, and yes, if you're just starting out in 5 years, you're going to be able to create curriculum that we can't even imagine, that Ronnie and I have never even dreamed of. But right now, the most important ingredient is your centered presence and your love for them. Not a personal love. I'm not talking about a love of like, Glenda, you're so sweet with those blue eyes, and I just, I love that necklace. Come sit on my lap. No, that's good too. I don't mean there's anything wrong with that. But that love that goes beyond her physical being and her personality, that's just a recognition that here is a spark of the divine, and a respect and an openness to know that I'm not only here saying she's the student and I'm the teacher. I'm not only here as her guide and her teacher so that she learns to read another, to increase her reading level another grade level this year, and to teach her to say please and thank you. I'm also here just to share this life's journey with her and to learn from her as well as teach her, because every single person who comes to us has something to offer. And sometimes it's like I write about in Common Compassionate Children. One day it was the little girl who was so much more in the heart than I was, that she noticed I was sitting at my desk busily trying to write lesson plans as the kids came in the door or checked papers or something. And I was just saying, good morning, hi. And she got up and came around the desk and put her arms around me and said, you need a hug. And I sat up, oh my gosh, where was I? They're here. I need to recognize each of these beings, So in that case, she taught me be present. It was a spiritual lesson. Sometimes they teach us lessons that aren't as easy to learn. Like when they want to teach us patience. They don't want to teach us patience, but we need to learn patience. We need to learn to dive deep beyond this behavior to find out what insecurity, what fear, what anger, what problem, what low blood sugar, wrong food, whatever it is motivating this disharmonious behavior. And when we have that attitude of that we're there to learn as well as to teach, you feel it. You feel it when you go in the classroom, and there's just so, I've had people say it. Remember I talked to you about the Korean woman that came to our school, and she came and she said, I've been visiting all these schools, and this is the first one I've seen where all the children are smiling. It wasn't recess. It wasn't, they weren't playing a game. It's just, but they were smiling. They weren't, I don't mean they were grinning, but they looked, there was an inner peace that was coming out. So I want to start with that because it's the most basic thing that I'm thinking about right now this morning. I gave you a handout. I've seen this expressed in different ways about how you learn, that some of us learn by being told and by auditory. Some of us can hear a radio program and remember it. I used to tease Karen and say she must be an auditory learner because she could sing any song words that would come up from our, the same age, so it goes way back. And she'd break out into the song and know all the words. And all I could do was, the most popular line of it, I want to hold your hand. What else is there? I don't know. She could sing it verse by verse, so she learned what she heard. Some children have to see it. I know I was one of the ones that have to see it, so I so appreciated this. This was so helpful to me, and as a teachers, we need to remember some children need to see it, some children need to hear it, some children do better if they can do both, some children need to move around while they hear it, right? Some people, you all know that. All you educators know about kinesthetic, auditory, and visual learners. But also, how do we learn best education for life students? Through first class experience. So, and all those profound lessons in life, like that one about being present, when the little girl came around and gave me a kiss and said, "You need a hug." The profound lessons in life, we always learn them through experience. It's not because someone tells us. It's through experience from babyhood, what we experienced in our home, and then yes, what we bring to the experience, and do we benefit from it? Or do we become bitter from it? Do we accept it and grow from it? Or do we reject and become contracted? That makes a difference. But we learn best through experience. So as Narani was talking about this morning, the experience of going out and listening to the geese. If you can't go out and listen to the geese, a recording from the library of the bird calls and a film of the geese if you're living in. Now, of course, in Portland, we have a lot of Canada geese. But if it were penguins, we couldn't go out and do that, but we could get a little closer. But we could go out and experience birds. So but it's not just that. It's not just let's build a volcano, but let's just don't study the volcano, two-dimensional volcano on the page. It's a lot of fun to build a flower volcano and put, what is it you put in it?
Baking soda.
Yeah, baking soda and vinegar and but some children can learn geography by looking at a map. Others, very few though, others need to actually have that map at their desk and label it. And they go to the map and they look back and they go and they look back and they learn it that way. Other children, I just always loved it that at the school in Nevada City, they had the United States of America on the playground. And they have that at Montclair Public School in Beaverton School District here. And so that you can go out there and have the kids say, everybody go to Texas. Okay, and so they all run to, or maybe three at a time. Everybody run to Texas. Where's Massachusetts? All of a sudden, it's like she said, it's a passion of childhood. It's a game, and they care. Who cares where it is on that board? Or another way to make it experiential to them, where do their relatives live? Go home, find out where all their relatives live, and then give each one a different colored push pen and have them go up and find the state where their relatives live and let them put that in. You see the difference, don't you? And how you can learn geography. And just those three examples through experience. So everything I'm talking about are the actual direct experience part of the lesson. And Toby's going to, or Narani, is going to review in a minute the flow learning, which is awaken enthusiasm. Who knows what's next? Anybody? Focus attention, and then the direct experience, which is the meat of the lesson, and then share inspiration. You don't have to do the share inspiration after every single lesson, but you certainly need to do it daily, and you certainly need to do it at the end of any unit. And so I have brought, for your benefit, a couple of sample lessons that come from this book, A Swim Through the Sea. It was written by a former Education for Life teacher, and I brought two that Karen has used. So I asked Karen, I saw this first one, I thought, well, I know she's doing that, right? She just did this last term, she and Sonali, with Ocean Life. Is that the name of the unit?
I forgot what we called it.
Oceans, at any rate.
Something about the oceans.
And I didn't want to violate copyright law by copying too much, but there are actually 3 lessons in here on clownfish. And one of the lessons on clownfish is body, one of them's feeling, one of them's will. And the one that she most recently did is this one on will. So the object of the lesson was that they would, and this is stated in highfalutin language because they want these lessons to be bought by public school teachers and used, and you have to kind of conform to certain expectations. We don't have to do that, but knows the effects of various visual structures and function of art, knows that an organism's patterns of behavior are related to the nature of that organism's environment. So what you actually do is you create all these little fishies, little construction paper fishies, and Karen, why don't you tell them what you did with them?
This is the camouflage one?
I believe so.
Okay.
Is that
All
it?
right, so there's the fish, and each child gets fish. Well, I start by having some that are hidden around the room already that I've created. And so they go on a little hunt and see if they can find my fish. And usually, maybe they can find one of them. One of them's still up in my classroom. You could go look around and see if you can find it. But, some of them were hidden so well we couldn't find them at the end. Anyway, then they get different fish and they color them to blend with some part of the classroom. And then I have to leave the room, so I don't know where their fish are. And then I get to come in, and over the next few weeks, we see what I can find. And then at the end, we all go on a hunt and see how many of the fish, and we know approximately how many there should be because of how many kids and how many they each had. But anyway, it's a lot of fun, and they get a real sense of camouflage color.
And you see the difference in that between telling them, look at the picture in this book, you see how the coloring matches their environment, and they're actually having to look around the environment, find some color, create that, and try to hide the fish. And it's the joy. It brings the joy of learning in. So I'm going to give you these two and just tell you that these are written in tremendous detail because it's a published curricula. That's not what your assignment's going to be. Your assignment is going to be to create one that we'll give you a little later that's going to look like this. This is one page. This is a lesson that Karen created. And Karen is prepared to demonstrate this little lesson to you in abbreviated form. Should we do it before or after you talk about the three handouts that they're going to get?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, well, let's just experience it right now and then discuss what we experienced.
Okay, if I could have a couple of volunteers to bring a chair up front, you're going to be the students. Okay, we're going to start. You guys are going to do just what I do. The only thing is you have to wait for my signal.
Okay.
So you don't do it as soon as I say it, you wait for my signal before you do it. And my signal will be just 2 quick claps like,
Okay.
and I might try to trick you or I might not, you just never know, okay? Excellent.
That wasn't too close.
Yeah.
It was very quick.
Was that two?
I tricked you and I wasn't even trying to. Alrighty, so what we're going to be doing in this activity is we've been learning about some of the vowels and the sounds they make. And just to review, this, what letter is this?
I.
Uh-huh. What sound does it make when it's a short vowel? Do you remember?
Yeah.
It. So if I said a word that had this in it, I might say sit. Okay. How about this one?
Ah.
What's it sound?
Ah.
Ah. Just like in stand.
Okay.
And then we have, oops, this one.
Ah.
Ah. Just like in hop. All right, so what we're going to be doing in our little game is I'm going to say a word. And if I say a word that has ah in it, you are going to stand at my signal.
Ay,
If
ay,
I
ay.
say a word that has it in it, like if I say cricket, you'll sit when I give the signal. Or if I say a word that has ah in it, like hog, you'll hop. Okay? Should we give it a try?
Sure.
Let's try it with one. Okay. I'm going to say the word pitch. So, do you have the sound in your head? You don't get to move, do you, this time, because you're already sitting? You guys are very good at this. Okay, how about happy? Excellent. All right, next word is dog. Great. Okay, next word is stick. Okay,
Great.
and I could do that also. I could have them write down the letter, or we're learning in my class sign language, so we've learned the manual alphabet. We could also do the letter for each one. Oh. Excellent, students.
Okay, so I think I'm going to sit down and let Ronnie come up. She's going to talk to you a little bit more about planning a unit, and then she's going to give you time to start.
Now, Usha, my schedule says Melissa's going to do Awaken, Focus, and Direct Experience.
Yes, and she isn't in here, so we'll have to do that tomorrow morning. I don't know. Oh, there she is. Let's do it tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Because we need something fun tomorrow morning, because she's leading Circle today, which we usually have on Sunday morning. And that'll give us something somewhat similar to do on Sunday morning. But
Okay.
Yeah. I love the schedule. So I want to change it, may I?
Okay. So this is just an aside from what I'm going to do in a few minutes. But when she was talking about the teachers writing down what the children said, all the things the children said, one of the things that when I was saying we were going through the accreditation, when we went through our accreditation process, and they wanted more documentation of things that we did. Also in working with the school starting in India, the last 2 years when we have had groups of people from India come to visit the school, and they love what we're saying, they love what we're doing, but they say, what do you have written down so we can, when we talk to prospective parents, we can actually show that there is growth in the children, because we're looking at not only intellectual growth, that's in, moving ahead academically, that's a given and that's easy to assess and all that kind of thing. But we put so much emphasis on the other areas of growth, that the qualities that we're trying to help the children develop to have happy, fulfilled, prosperous lives, that those are actually being developed. How do we prove that that's happening? And so what we've come up with, it's a very simple way to document. It's been lovely to have to share with parents. Is we have like a form that we have that you can show growth. But the thing that's simple that I do is I have a folder like this that's got a tab for each child, and throughout the day, this has many benefits, but throughout the day, if I notice something in someone, particular kindness, all of a sudden they're willing to climb the trees when they've been fearful before. We go on a hike and they're not asking to be picked up. They do the whole 2 miles without any complaint and with enthusiasm. They pushed through a math assignment that they've been struggling with for a week, and now they've got it, and they're willing, even if they don't have it, all of a sudden they've reached the point where they can keep themselves working on it. And I'll just take a sticky note and I'll write down real quick, Sandy, blah, blah, blah. And I just stick it on the outside of my book. And at the end of the day, it just takes me moments to turn to Susie's page and write down the date, this happened. Another thing, this happened. And then a couple times a year, we actually graph it, and you can show the growth according to what you see in the classroom. But that just quick, write it down, just enough to jog my memory for at the end of the day. And oh my gosh, to be able to sit with my parents then and to say, let me tell you, you know, we were doing this activity, we were doing, one thing that comes to mind, one of my little girls, a favorite thing, and actually I did it in a couple of the classrooms yesterday, uses sand trays. And I had gotten some new little jewels that they use, and one of my little girls came up to get the sand tray, and she picked up a jewel, and it was a new one, it was really pretty. And she said, Balam, look how pretty this is. Do you want it? And she just handed it to him. And this is someone who in the past has struggled with wanting to be, you know, a lot of me focus. And nothing was, you know, just that was her impulse. You know, and to be able to share with her parents, let me tell you what she said and what she did. They just, you know, it's really nice. And it's, I said it had many benefits. As a teacher, when you're every day writing down these, I mean, I also write down if somebody's really struggling, but mostly I'm writing down where they're shining. And every day I'm writing down where these little ones that are in my life are shining. Do you know what it does to my attitude and to my appreciation for them? And to see, you know, it's easy as you go busy through the day. They happen and you appreciate them in the moment, but then they're gone. But to call them back, to have that little reminder, to call them back at the end of the day, my job seems like being in a temple because it's reinforced in me too. You know, and so these are real people, and so we have struggles, you know, and it's easy to focus on the areas that we're struggling with. You go home and, oh boy, phew, you know, but before you've gone home, you've done this. So we've been searching for easy ways, doable ways that we'll actually do. If they're too heavy, you're not going to, too time consuming, you're just not going to do it. This takes moments, you know, and you don't have to sit there with your kids. And, you know, and my kids will say, what are you writing? I'll just say, I'm writing what Sandy did. And that's it, you know, and so anyway, that's an aside. Okay, there's that 3. Are you taking Bob, do you want one of these? No? Okay. Okay, so the first page is deciding what to teach. The second page is looking at a unit and determining goals and objectives. And the third page are specific activities, okay? And this is just a very usable guide. You can obviously come up with your own way. So what I'm going to do is walk through this a little bit because this may be helpful for you in planning units, in planning particular lessons. Some people like to have something to guide their thinking. You know, if you're real intuitive and real go with the flow, this may be like a box that you have to put yourself into, and you do better without it. You know, like the teacher I was telling you, Tim, forget it, he'd never use something like this. But others, this kind of thing is helpful for me because I can get more influenced by something like a set curriculum than I want to be. And this will help not. Okay, so on the first page, deciding what to teach, I'm not going to go through every single thing. You can all read. But as I was going through it, there were just a few things that stood out. What are the needs, interests, and background of my class? What is their next step towards maturity? And so, you know, often what I'll do is I'll just sort of hold my class mentally. And I can sort of sense where they're going. You know, let me give an example. I had a 5th grade class one time it was mostly girls, and they were heading all of a sudden towards sort of pre-adolescent behavior. these were really good girls. They were not good kids, the boys too. They were not pushing against me, that kind of, you tend to think of adolescents. That's not what I mean. But they were getting all of a sudden that contractive turning in on themselves. Everybody's looking at me. How am I dressed today? All that inward and not a positive way focus. And lots of insecurity starting to come up when they were very strong, secure kids in the past and everything like that. And I thought, okay, I'm starting to, even though they were only in 5th grade, and this is something that we would tend to do more with truly adolescent kids, they were calling forth from me by their behavior needs to help them stay open, help them move out of that me focus into others, and feel very capable. So we got, and we didn't have goats in the community that time, but we got 2 brand new 3-day-old baby goats. Because I remembered 2 of my friends who had babies when they had teenage daughters. And those girls did not go through the typical adolescent stuff that everybody else went through. Those babies kept them in their heart and kept them reaching out and caring. And by that, it just countered that kind of me kind of, how am I in comparison to everybody else? So the baby goats, I wanted to give them a big heart, a big dose of heart, and a big dose of caring. So it meant we had to bottle feed them 3 times a day, and then we'd sit outside because it was springtime and do our lessons, and the baby goats are jumping on our backs and stuff. And it really did give that nurture. It gave them an avenue to really nurture and care, and kept that heart soft. And I pushed them academically much harder than I've ever pushed kids before, because what do those adolescents want? Adolescents want to feel capable. They're questioning what they can do. They need to know they can do a lot. And so, we did that, and they did fantastic. And so that holding them, I wish I had the right words to tell you. Do you know what I mean by holding your class? Somehow, you just hold them in your consciousness, and their needs or their vibration or their next step comes to you and guides you. And it will do it. You have to kind of get out of your head a little bit, but it will do that. So, oh, yike. We got to talk faster and not do a lot of this. Let's see. Also, if you teach something and they just don't get it, don't be afraid to consider that you missed the beat on that one. You either taught it in a way, you taught too big a step, or you didn't catch them where they're at. So what? We make mistakes. And so often, I'll tell you, when I started off, if my kids didn't get something, I just did it again. Because I thought they didn't listen, or something. It was their problem. And finally I recognized, a lot of the time, I just didn't catch them. Big deal. Just do it again. Do it different. It's not like I'm a failure as a teacher. I guessed wrong. I just didn't do it. So change what you did. It's not always your fault, but no big deal. If, somehow you didn't get them, try it again. Try it different. Let's see. Everything else on this page you've had experience with. The second page, goals and objectives, this is a great page for staying EFL and guiding you. Because in this you're asked, what is the essence of this topic in relation to the category I've chosen? What's the heart of what? Not just, the information is there. There's nothing wrong with teaching information. But what else is there? If you're doing Revolutionary War, imagine what made these people think they could ever win that war. Ever. This was, this little ragtag group of people against England, the strongest navy that there was. And they knew if they lost, they would be hung and their families would essentially starve. They would lose everything. What kind of principle, what kind of inspiration makes you take that kind of risk? So when you're on the playground and somebody's saying, go get that ball from so-and-so, and it's your best friend, and you really want them to like you, but you know it's wrong. How do you do it? What do you call forth from within yourself to say no to your friend and say it's their turn, let them have that ball? You know, so you take that essence of that lesson and you apply it to their life. Their lives are changed. They're not just learning stuff with their head, their lives are changed and guided. You know, so look at this. This is good stuff. Oh, and then I put down too, because there are a ton of questions on this. You don't have to do every one of these. Be careful that you don't get overwhelmed, that you don't overwhelm yourself and think, oh my gosh, I got to do this, and I got to do this, and I got to... Just when you hold your class or you hold that subject in your consciousness, what are the most important things, the things that come most quickly and most clearly to you, and focus on those. It's kind of like this. You know, I've been working for days. How do I take 30-some years of experience and get it down into an hour in one class and 40 minutes in the other? It's so hard, you know, so don't do it all. You know, look at what stands out and do what stands out. And save the other stuff, it'll come up later. And then the third part, specific activities, third page, and it talks about like flow learning. I wanted to say one thing about focus, attention, and direct experience activities, because with really little ones, those of you who have kindergarten and first grade, you may find that focus attention actually needs to come after direct experience. Or focus attention is like 2 sentences. They have to do it. It's like that's what gives them the hooks. That's what, it grabs their attention. That's what gets them into it. It also gives them something to hook the knowledge onto. So with the little guys, you may want to flip-flop them or do focus attention teeny, give them direct experience, and then go back to focus attention, you know? So consider that in what you're doing, because you know you've seen it. You start giving your lesson, and in moments, you know, and all kinds of stuff. You know, get them doing it first, and then you can talk.